the New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, doubled down today on his stingy, mean-spirited decision not to honour King Charles with a lighting display on the iconic Sydney Opera House. He was saving taxpayers' money, he said, all $80,000 of it. That's going to make a big difference. And, of course, Australia having a new king has nothing to do with Australians, unlike the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine or the assassination of a former Japanese Prime Minister or the Indian festival of Dilwale, all of which were considered important enough to be commemorated on the Opera House at taxpayer expense. Chris Minns went on radio today defending his decision not to honour King Charles.
When you say you only want it lit up for Australians and things in Australia, you wrote in February last year on Ukraine, the sails of the Opera House should be lit up tonight with Ukraine's flag.
Well, there's a difference, I think, between the country showing international solidarity to an event that's taking place around the world and the change to the operation of government for Australia. We don't do it when there's a change of government in the country, when Labor goes from Labor to Liberal or Liberal to Labor. And I appreciate that it was done when the Queen passed away. I thought that that was appropriate. But the reason for that was it was a commemoration of the life that she'd led and the sacrifice she'd made on behalf of the Commonwealth, Australia and the UK.
Sure, I mean, there seems
not
to be...
as a result of her passing or the commemoration of the King.
Liz, I really want to like Chris Minns, but is he the most ridiculous premier in the country right now? And that's saying something.
It's looking that way and trying to make this about the money that I'm saving you guys. Do me a favour. It's about to be lit up like a Christmas tree round the clock for about a month for Vivid, right, which costs us millions and millions of dollars. So don't say this is about the money. I think a lot of people would have been shocked to know that that's how much it costs, though. I always just pictured a task force of people slapping new cellophane on a pile of bowls being like, yeah,
but you're a high-tech person, which is why you understood it like
exactly,
that.
But you can't make this about the money. The New South Wales in particular, although I think the nation did at large, but obviously here we are at home, made it very clear. I was listening to Talkback Radio. There was a few online polls. We live in a representative democracy. You are supposed to represent the will of the people, not push the agenda of what we know is the Labor government. You're Republicans. You want us to be a republic, so you think you start acting like it in advance. Not on our watch. This is public property, and we want it lit up for the new king, who I'm not a fan of personally, but I'm happy to respect the institution.
But that's the worry.
And I would have voted to see it.
This early in his premiership, he is that disconnected from the public. We thought when he was elected, this is a really nice ordinary bloke, a bloke you could have a beer with, a bloke you could have a coffee with, really nice, likeable ordinary bloke. And suddenly he shows, oh, I've got no idea what the ordinary people are thinking. That's the worry.
He actually made, I'll give him some credit for this point. He made the point that last year, I think the Opera House was lit up 70 different times for all sorts of things. It's too much. We need to be more considered. So maybe that's a fair point. But then he goes and makes his stand on this issue.
What a once-in-a-lifetime event for the vast majority of us. I mean, it's a joke. And once again, that's a furphy. It's smoke and mirrors. We all know it. This was a slap in the face to the will of the people who made what they wanted very clear. And you just did what you wanted, which was the Labor government's agenda to push a republic at all costs, because they know that the voice and this referendum coming up later in the year is intrinsically linked to monarchy and the sentiment around monarchy, the sentiment around institution. And they've made it very clear as well that should the vote for the voice get up, the very next referendum on their watch will be to become a republic. So the two things are very linked here, which is why they're going so hard on not being seen to celebrate the constitutional monarchy
Chris Minns is too smart by half here, though, because he's established a new standard. So every time the Opera House is lit up, we're going to say, well, was that more important than a new king? And every time the government spends money funding some weird arts festival, we're going to say, what? So you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on that, but you couldn't spend 80 grand honouring King Charles. He's created a problem for himself moving forward, I think.
The first coronation in 70 years. It was a really big deal. And the world watched. 1 billion people around the world watched. Australians automatically in Sydney, just off their own bat, had street parties and organised barbecues and did. Now, that's where the people were, Chris. So where were you, Chris? I mean, this looks like a man saying, I'd like to be a one-term premier, thank you very much. I'm really out of touch now.
Well, I mean, in New York, the Empire State Building was lit up in the British colours.
And they're a republic.
And they're a republic.
There you go, but they can respect an institution.